Captain Emily Dawson stood tall in the dimly lit corridor of the orbital station Orion's Shield. Her boots clicked softly against the metal floor as she walked with purpose. She had just returned from a long and dangerous mission on an alien-infested moon, one that had tested her skills, endurance, and leadership to their limits. Despite her exhaustion, she felt proud of what her team had accomplished. They had completed their objectives, saved lives, and brought back valuable data about the enemy's movements. Emily was not only a decorated officer but also someone who inspired respect wherever she went. Her sharp mind, quick decision-making, and calm demeanor under pressure made her stand out among her peers. But there was something else about her that set her apart. She was one of the few women of color in a high-ranking position within the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF. While many admired her for breaking barriers, others resented her for it. As she approached Commander Halloran's office, Emily straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. She wasn't sure why she had been summoned so urgently, but she knew better than to keep a superior waiting. The door slid open automatically, and she stepped inside, snapping to attention. "Captain Dawson reporting as ordered, sir," she said crisply. Commander Halloran looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable. He gestured for her to relax. "At ease, Captain. I wanted to debrief you personally after your latest mission." His tone was neutral, almost dismissive, but Emily didn't let it bother her. She nodded and waited patiently for him to continue. Before Halloran could say another word, the door burst open again. Two men entered without knocking or announcing themselves. One was Lieutenant Marcus Grayson, a tall man with piercing blue eyes and an air of arrogance. The other was Major Ryan Fletcher, shorter but stockier, with a permanent scowl etched onto his face. Both men were senior officers, and both had reputations for being difficult to work with. Grayson glanced at Emily and smirked. "Well, well, if it isn't our star captain," he drawled sarcastically. Fletcher chuckled beside him, crossing his arms over his chest. Emily ignored them, keeping her focus on Halloran. She didn't trust either man, and she certainly didn't appreciate their uninvited presence. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" Halloran asked, frowning slightly. He didn't seem pleased by their sudden entrance, but neither did he reprimand them. "We just wanted to see how Captain Dawson was settling back into life aboard the station," Grayson replied smoothly, his voice dripping with mockery. "After all, she's been gallivanting around alien worlds while some of us have been holding down the fort here." Emily clenched her jaw but kept her composure. She had dealt with comments like these before, subtle jabs meant to undermine her authority or question her abilities. She refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her react. Fletcher stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. "You know, Grayson, I've always wondered how someone like her managed to climb so high so fast. Must be nice to have connections." His tone was laced with insinuation, and Emily could feel her anger simmering beneath the surface. She forced herself to take slow, steady breaths. Halloran cleared his throat awkwardly. "Gentlemen, this isn't the time or place for such talk. We're here to discuss Captain Dawson's recent mission." But Grayson and Fletcher weren't done. Fletcher reached over to Halloran's desk and picked up a pitcher of water that had been sitting there unnoticed. He turned it over in his hands, examining it as if it were the most fascinating thing in the room. Then, without warning, he tilted it and poured its contents directly onto Emily's head. The cold water hit her like a shockwave, soaking her hair and running down her face and neck. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Emily stood perfectly, still, her eyes wide with disbelief. The silence in the room was deafening. Grayson laughed loudly, slapping Fletcher on the back. "There we go. Maybe that'll cool her off a bit," he said, his voice filled with malice. Fletcher joined in, his laughter echoing off the walls. Halloran looked horrified, his mouth opening and closing as if he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Emily slowly raised a hand to wipe the water from her eyes. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to let them see her cry or show any sign of weakness. Instead, she locked eyes with Grayson and Fletcher, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Is that all?" she asked calmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Her composure caught them off guard, and for a brief second they faltered. But then Grayson sneered, leaning in close enough for her to smell the stale coffee on his breath. "You'd better watch yourself, Dawson," he whispered menacingly. "Not everyone appreciates your kind around here." Emily didn't respond. She simply turned on her heel and walked out of the room, leaving a trail of water behind her. Her footsteps echoed down the corridor as she made her way to her quarters. Once inside, she closed the door and leaned against it, finally allowing herself to exhale. The humiliation stung more than the cold water ever could. She had faced countless dangers during her missions: hostile aliens, treacherous terrain, and near-death experiences, but nothing had prepared her for this. This wasn't just an insult. It was a calculated attack meant to remind her of her place in a world that still struggled with equality. For a moment, Emily considered letting it go. After all, she had worked hard to get where she was, and she didn't want anything to jeopardize her career. But deep down, she knew she couldn't stay silent. If she did, it would only embolden people like Grayson and Fletcher to continue their behavior unchecked. And worse, it would send a message to others that such actions were acceptable. As she dried herself off and changed into a fresh uniform, Emily resolved to fight back. Not out of revenge, but because it was the right thing to do. She had dedicated her life to serving humanity and protecting its future among the stars. That included standing up against injustice, even when it came from within her own ranks. Little did she know, this incident would spark a chain reaction that would challenge not only her personal beliefs, but also humanity's fragile alliances with extraterrestrial species. The road ahead would be difficult, but Emily Dawson was no stranger to challenges, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The orbital station Orion's Shield was a marvel of human engineering, a sprawling hub of activity that floated silently in the vastness of space. It served as both a military outpost and a diplomatic center, where humanity worked alongside alien species to maintain peace and cooperation. Among these allies were the Veirathi, a humanoid race with shimmering blue skin and an unshakable sense of honor. They had been invaluable partners in humanity's fight against hostile extraterrestrial forces, but their alliance was built on trust, a fragile thing that could crumble under the weight of betrayal. Captain Emily Dawson knew this better than most. Over the years, she had worked closely with the Veirathi, earning their respect through her integrity and dedication. She understood how important it was for humans to prove themselves worthy of partnership. That's why what happened in Commander Halloran's office weighed heavily on her mind. It wasn't just about her. It was about what such behavior said about humanity as a whole. As news of the incident spread, water poured over her head by two senior officers. It didn't take long for Ambassador Kalen, the Veirathi representative stationed on Orion's Shield, to hear about it. The ambassador was a tall, imposing figure with sharp features and piercing golden eyes. He carried himself with an air of dignity that commanded respect from everyone around him. When he learned of the humiliating act directed at Emily, he demanded answers immediately. Kalen requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Carter, the highest-ranking official aboard the station. In the conference room, the ambassador wasted no time getting to the point. "What has occurred here is unacceptable," he said, his deep voice resonating through the room. "Your people claim to value unity and equality, yet we see evidence to the contrary." Admiral Carter shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He was a seasoned officer, but even he felt the weight of Kalen's words. "Ambassador, I assure you, this is not reflective of our values. An investigation will be launched into the matter." Kalen's expression remained stern. "Investigations are necessary, but they are not enough. Such actions undermine the trust we have placed in your species. If humanity wishes to continue its alliances with the Veirathi and others, it must address these issues openly and decisively." Emily sat quietly in the corner of the room, observing the exchange. She had been invited to attend the meeting at Kalen's request, though she hadn't expected him to be so vocal in her defense. Part of her felt grateful for his support, but another part worried about the consequences. The last thing she wanted was for this incident to jeopardize humanity's standing among the stars. After the meeting ended, Kalen approached Emily privately. "Captain Dawson," he began, his tone softer now. "I understand this must be difficult for you, but please know that you have allies who stand with you, not only within your own ranks but also among other species." Emily nodded, touched by his words. "Thank you, Ambassador. Your support means a lot, but I'm afraid this goes deeper than just me. There are systemic issues within our military that need to be addressed." Kalen studied her for a moment, then inclined his head. "You speak wisely. Perhaps this unfortunate event can serve as a catalyst for change. Do not let fear or hesitation hold you back. Humanity's future depends on leaders like you." With those words, Kalen left Emily alone with her thoughts. She returned to her quarters, replaying the conversation in her mind. He was right. This could be an opportunity to push for reform. But it wouldn't be easy. Standing up to powerful figures like Grayson and Fletcher would require courage, strategy, and allies she could trust. The next day, Emily sought out Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, a junior officer who had always shown her respect and admiration. Daniel was young but sharp, with a strong moral compass that reminded her of herself when she first joined the UEDF. She found him in the mess hall, picking at a tray of food while reviewing mission reports on his tablet. "Lieutenant," she greeted him, pulling out a chair across from him. "Do you have a moment?" Daniel looked up, surprised to see her. "Of course, Captain. What can I do for you?" Emily hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I need someone I can trust, Daniel. Someone who understands the importance of doing what's right even when it's hard." His brow furrowed. "Are you in trouble, ma'am?" "In a way," Emily admitted. She recounted the events of the previous day, the water pouring incident, the confrontation with Grayson and Fletcher, and the fallout involving Ambassador Kalen. As she spoke, Daniel listened intently, his expression growing darker with each word. "That's outrageous," he said finally, shaking his head. "They can't get away with treating you or anyone like that." "I agree," Emily replied, "but exposing them won't be simple. They have friends in high places, and they'll fight back if they feel threatened. We need proof, and we need to move carefully." Daniel leaned forward, determination flashing in his eyes. "Tell me what you need me to do, Captain. I'm with you." Over the next few days, Emily and Daniel worked together in secret, gathering evidence to build their case against Grayson and Fletcher. They started by reviewing surveillance footage from the corridors near Commander Halloran's office. While the cameras inside the office itself weren't operational during the incident, there was a chance they might find something useful outside. To access the footage, they enlisted the help of Chief Engineer Olivia Grant. Olivia was a brilliant mechanic and technician, known for her resourcefulness and problem-solving skills. Though she initially hesitated to get involved, she agreed after hearing Emily's story. "I've seen those two throwing their weight around before," Olivia said grimly. "If you're serious about taking them down, I'll do whatever I can to help." With Olivia's expertise, they managed to retrieve several clips showing Grayson and Fletcher entering and leaving Halloran's office. Though the footage didn't capture the actual act of pouring water on Emily, it provided context and timing that supported her account. More importantly, it revealed the smug expressions on their faces afterward, suggesting they felt no remorse for their actions. Encouraged by this breakthrough, Emily and her small team dug deeper. They discovered a pattern of discriminatory behavior by Grayson and Fletcher, including falsified reports and deliberate sabotage of missions led by minority officers. One particularly damning piece of evidence came from a junior engineer who claimed Fletcher had threatened to ruin her career unless she fabricated data to cover up a mistake he had made. As the pieces fell into place, Emily felt a mix of anger and resolve. Anger at the injustice she and others had endured, and resolve to ensure it never happened again. But she also knew the hardest part was yet to come, confronting the perpetrators and bringing their actions to light. In preparation for the inevitable showdown, Emily rehearsed her arguments, anticipating every possible counterattack Grayson and Fletcher might throw at her. She practiced staying calm and composed, refusing to let them provoke her into losing control. With Daniel and Olivia by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Meanwhile, tensions aboard the station continued to rise. Rumors of the incident spread quickly, dividing the crew into factions. Some supported Emily, outraged by the treatment she had received. Others dismissed the accusations as exaggerated or fabricated, siding with Grayson and Fletcher out of loyalty or fear. The atmosphere grew tense, with whispered conversations and sidelong glances filling the corridors. Through it all, Emily remained focused on her goal. She knew this wasn't just about her. It was about creating a better future for everyone, regardless of rank, gender, or background. And she was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. One evening, as she stared out the viewport at the endless expanse of stars, Emily allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with obstacles and resistance, but she believed in humanity's potential to grow and change. With allies like Daniel, Olivia, and even Ambassador Kalen, she felt hopeful that real progress could be made. And so, with renewed determination, Emily prepared to take the next step. She would present her case to Admiral Carter, armed with evidence and unwavering resolve. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain: she wouldn't back down. Not now, not ever. The days following the incident felt like a blur for Captain Emily Dawson. Every waking moment was consumed by preparation, reviewing evidence, strategizing with her small team, and mentally rehearsing how she would present her case to Admiral Carter. She knew this meeting would be pivotal, not just for her, but for the future of equality within the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF. Yet despite her determination, doubt occasionally crept in. What if the evidence wasn't enough? What if Grayson and Fletcher managed to twist the truth and turn the tables on her? These thoughts gnawed at her as she walked through the corridors of Orion's shield. The station buzzed with activity, but Emily barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying every detail of the plan she had devised with Lieutenant Daniel, Brooks, and Chief Engineer Olivia Grant. They had uncovered damning proof of Grayson and Fletcher's misconduct, including surveillance footage and testimonies from junior officers who had been mistreated. Still, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something might go wrong. Her worries intensified when she overheard snippets of conversation among the crew. Some supported her cause, whispering words of encouragement whenever she passed by. Others, however, were less sympathetic. "She's making too big a deal out of nothing," one officer muttered to another. "They're just trying to stir up trouble," another added dismissively. These comments stung, but Emily forced herself to stay focused. She reminded herself that change rarely came without resistance. One evening, as she sat alone in her quarters, going over the files again, there was a knock at her door. Surprised, she called out, "Come in." To her astonishment, Ambassador Kalen entered, his tall frame filling the doorway. His golden eyes locked onto hers, and he gave a slight nod of greeting. "Captain Dawson," he said softly, closing the door behind him. "May I have a word?" "Of course, Ambassador," Emily replied, gesturing for him to sit. Though taken aback by his unexpected visit, she felt a flicker of hope. Kalen's presence could only mean one thing. He wanted to help. "I've been observing the situation closely," Kalen began, his tone measured. "Your struggle is not yours alone. It reflects broader issues that affect humanity's standing among the stars. If you are willing, I would like to offer my assistance." Emily blinked, momentarily speechless. She hadn't expected such direct support from an alien diplomat, no matter how much she respected him. I don't know what to say, Ambassador. Your help would mean a great deal, but I don't want to put you in an awkward position." Kalen smiled faintly, a gesture that seemed almost human despite his shimmering blue skin. "My people value honor above all else. We cannot stand idly by while injustice goes unchallenged. Besides," he added, his voice firm, "this is not solely about you. It is about whether humanity can live up to its promises of unity and fairness. That matters to us as well." Touched by his words, Emily nodded. "Thank you, Ambassador. I won't forget this." With Kalen's backing, Emily felt more confident than ever. The ambassador agreed to attend the upcoming meeting with Admiral Carter, where he would speak on behalf of the Veirathi and emphasized the importance of addressing discrimination within the UEDF. This alliance strengthened Emily's resolve, giving her the courage to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The day of the meeting arrived, and Emily dressed carefully in her crispest uniform. She met Daniel and Olivia outside the conference room, both of whom looked equally nervous but determined. "We've got this," Daniel whispered, offering her a reassuring smile. Olivia simply nodded, clutching a datapad filled with their evidence. When they entered the room, Admiral Carter was already seated at the head of the table, flanked by several high-ranking officers. Grayson and Fletcher sat nearby, their expressions smug and self-assured. They exchanged glances, clearly convinced that Emily wouldn't dare challenge them publicly. As everyone settled into their seats, Admiral Carter cleared his throat. "Captain Dawson, you requested this meeting. Please state your business." Emily stood, taking a deep breath to steady herself. "Admiral, thank you for granting me this opportunity. I'm here to address serious allegations of misconduct against Lieutenant Marcus Grayson and Major Ryan Fletcher. Their actions have undermined morale, damaged trust within our ranks, and jeopardized humanity's alliances with extraterrestrial species." A murmur rippled through the room, and Grayson leaned back in his chair, sneering. "This is ridiculous," he interjected. "Captain Dawson is exaggerating minor incidents to further her agenda." Emily ignored him, turning instead to Admiral Carter. "With your permission, I'd like to present the evidence we've gathered." Carter nodded curtly, and Emily signaled for Olivia to step forward. Using the large screen in the room, Olivia displayed the surveillance footage showing Grayson and Fletcher entering and leaving Commander Halloran's office. While the actual act of pouring water wasn't captured, the timing and context were undeniable. Next, she showed falsified reports linked to Fletcher, highlighting discrepancies flagged by junior officers. Finally, Daniel spoke up, recounting first-hand accounts from crew members who had suffered under Grayson and Fletcher's leadership. One engineer described being coerced into covering up mistakes, while another recounted being demoted after refusing to comply with unethical orders. Each story painted a picture of systemic abuse rooted in prejudice. Grayson and Fletcher squirmed, in their seats, their confidence wavering. Fletcher tried to interrupt, accusing Emily of fabricating evidence, but Admiral Carter silenced him with a sharp look. "Let her finish," he ordered. When it was Kalen's turn to speak, the room fell silent. The ambassador rose gracefully, his presence commanding attention. "Admiral Carter, esteemed officers," he began, his voice resonating with authority. "What has transpired here is deeply troubling. Humanity seeks to establish itself as a leader among the stars, yet acts of discrimination and cruelty within your own ranks undermine that vision. My people and others like us are watching closely. How you handle this matter will determine whether we continue to place our trust in humanity." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Grayson and Fletcher exchanged uneasy glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. For once they had no clever remarks to hide behind. Admiral Carter leaned forward, his expression grim. "Captain Dawson, rest assured that this will be investigated thoroughly. In the meantime, Lieutenant, Grayson and Major Fletcher are suspended pending further review." Though the decision wasn't final, Emily felt a surge of relief. The hardest part was over. They had exposed the truth, and now accountability was within reach. As the meeting adjourned, Kalen approached Emily, placing a hand briefly on her shoulder. "Well done, Captain. You've taken the first step toward meaningful change." In the days that followed, news of the suspension spread throughout the station. Reactions were mixed, but many junior officers expressed gratitude for Emily's bravery. Some even came forward with additional stories of mistreatment bolstering her case. With each new account, Emily grew more determined to push for lasting reform. She proposed the creation of a Diversity and Equity Council within the UEDF, tasked with addressing systemic issues and ensuring accountability. The idea gained traction, especially after Kalen voiced his support during a public address. "True strength lies not in domination but in unity," he declared. "Humanity must embrace diversity to thrive among the stars." Though challenges remained, Emily felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. She knew the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot, but she also knew she wasn't alone. With allies like Daniel, Olivia, and Kaylin by her side, she believed real progress was possible, and so with renewed purpose, Emily prepared to take the next step. She would continue pushing for change, not just for herself, but for everyone who deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. Whatever obstacles lay ahead, she was ready to face them head-on. The suspension of Lieutenant Marcus Grayson and Major Ryan Fletcher sent shockwaves through the orbital station Orion's Shield. For years, the two men had operated with near impunity, their actions shielded by rank and connections. Now they found themselves stripped of authority, relegated to menial tasks far from the command center. But neither man was ready to admit defeat. They saw Emily Dawson's victory as a temporary setback, not the end of the battle. Grayson paced angrily. In his quarters, his fists clenched at his sides. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath. "That woman thinks she can humiliate us. She has no idea what she started." Fletcher sat on the edge of his bunk, staring blankly at the wall. "She's got everyone fooled," he growled, acting like some kind of hero when all she's doing is stirring up trouble. People are starting to question her motives. Grayson stopped pacing and turned to face him. "We need to fight back. If we let this slide, it'll only get worse. Pretty soon, every junior officer will think they can challenge their superiors." Fletcher nodded slowly, a sly smile creeping onto his face. "You're right. We've still got friends in high places. Let's remind everyone why discipline matters, and why people like her don't belong here." Meanwhile, Captain Emily Dawson continued working tirelessly to solidify the changes she had set in motion. With Grayson and Fletcher temporarily sidelined, she focused on building support for her proposed Diversity and Equity Council. Many officers admired her courage and vision, but not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Some believed the council would create unnecessary bureaucracy, while others worried it would divide rather than unite. Despite these challenges, Emily pressed forward. She met regularly with Lieutenant Daniel Brooks and Chief Engineer Olivia Grant, brainstorming ways to make the council effective without alienating those who opposed it. They also worked closely with Ambassador Kaylin, whose diplomatic skills proved invaluable in swaying skeptics. One afternoon, as Emily reviewed drafts of the council's charter in her quarters, there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, she found Admiral Carter standing outside, his expression unreadable. "Admiral," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "Is everything all right?" Carter entered and took a seat, gesturing for her to do the same. "Captain Dawson, I wanted to speak with you privately about the situation with Grayson and Fletcher. There's been pushback." Emily frowned. "Pushback? From whom?" "Other senior officers," Carter admitted reluctantly. "Some feel that suspending Grayson and Fletcher sets a dangerous precedent. They argue that your accusations lack sufficient evidence and that the incident has been blown out of proportion." Emily felt a surge of frustration but kept her tone calm. "With respect, sir, the evidence speaks for itself. Surveillance footage, falsified reports, testimonies, it's all there. And if we ignore this, we risk losing the trust of our allies and our own crew." Carter sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "I understand your point, Captain, but leadership isn't just about enforcing rules. It's about maintaining stability. Right now, tensions are running high, and I'm concerned about division within the ranks." Emily leaned forward, her voice firm. "Division exists because discrimination exists. Ignoring it won't make it go away. It'll only make it worse. The council I'm proposing isn't about punishment, it's about prevention. It's about ensuring that every member of the UEDF is treated fairly, regardless of rank, gender, or background." Carter studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I'll do what I can to support your efforts, but be prepared. Grayson and Fletcher aren't going down without a fight." True to Carter's warning, Grayson and Fletcher launched a counterattack. They began spreading rumors designed to undermine Emily's credibility. "She's using this so-called council to gain power," Grayson told anyone who would listen. "Mark my words, she'll use it to target anyone who disagrees with her." Their tactics worked on some officers, particularly those who already harbored resentment toward Emily. Tensions escalated further when Fletcher leaked an anonymous message claiming that Emily had fabricated parts of her case. Though the accusation was baseless, it planted seeds of doubt among certain factions of the crew. Determined to counteract the smear campaign, Emily held a public forum in the station's auditorium. She invited all personnel to attend, hoping to address their concerns directly. As she stepped onto the stage, she scanned the crowd, noting the mix of curious faces, skeptical glares, and supportive smiles. "Thank you for coming today," she began, speaking clearly and confidently. "I know there's been a lot of talk lately about recent events, and I want to take this opportunity to answer your questions honestly." For the next hour, Emily fielded inquiries from the audience. Some were hostile, accusing her of playing politics or seeking revenge. Others were genuine, asking how the council would function and whether it would truly make a difference. Emily responded to each question thoughtfully, emphasizing the importance of accountability and inclusion. When someone asked why she had pursued the matter so aggressively, Emily paused, choosing her words carefully. "Because staying silent wasn't an option," she said finally. "What happened to me wasn't just about me. It was about sending a message that prejudice and abuse have no place in our ranks. If we want to be leaders among the stars, we have to lead by example." Her response earned applause from many attendees, though some remained unconvinced. Among them was Commander Halloran, who watched silently from the back of the room. He had avoided taking sides since the incident, but Emily could see the conflict in his eyes. She hoped her words might sway him, even slightly. As days turned into weeks, the debate over the council intensified. Supporters rallied around Emily, organizing petitions and sharing stories of discrimination they had experienced. Opponents dug in their heels, arguing that the council would erode discipline and weaken the chain of command. The tension reached a boiling point during a heated assembly in the main conference room. Officers packed the space, their voices rising in argument before Admiral Carter called the meeting to order. "We are here to discuss the implementation of Captain Dawson's proposed Diversity and Equity Council," Carter announced, his tone authoritative. "Let us proceed respectfully and constructively." Grayson seized the opportunity to speak first. "Admiral, with all due respect, this council is a mistake. It undermines the very principles our military stands for: order, hierarchy, and loyalty. Allowing grievances to dictate policy will only create chaos." Emily stood calmly, waiting for her turn. When Carter nodded to her, she addressed the room. "Order and hierarchy are important, yes, but they must be built on fairness. Without fairness, loyalty becomes fear, and order becomes oppression. This council isn't about tearing anything down. It's about building something stronger." Her words resonated with many, but Fletcher wasn't finished. "Stronger for whom?" he demanded. "For people who refuse to follow orders unless they agree with them? For those who put personal agendas above duty?" Before Emily could respond, Ambassador Kalin rose from his seat. His presence commanded immediate silence. "Perhaps I may offer a perspective," he said, his voice carrying an unmistakable weight. "My people value honor above all else. To us, honor means treating others with respect and integrity, regardless of differences. Humanity seeks to join us among the stars, yet its own house remains divided. How can you expect trust from others when you cannot trust one another?" The room fell silent as Kalen's words sank in. Even Grayson and Fletcher seemed momentarily shaken. Emily exchanged a glance with the ambassador, gratitude shining in her eyes. When the meeting adjourned, the outcome remained uncertain. While some officers softened their stance, others clung stubbornly to their opposition. Yet Emily felt a renewed sense of hope. The tide was shifting, however slowly, and she knew the fight was worth it. In the days that followed, Emily continued advocating for the council, bolstered by growing support from both humans and aliens alike. Though challenges remained, she refused to give up. Every step forward brought her closer to a future where equality wasn't just an ideal, it was a reality. And somewhere deep inside, she allowed herself to believe that change was possible. After all, humanity had always thrived on hope. The weeks that followed the heated assembly were a whirlwind of activity aboard Orion's Shield. Captain Emily Dawson worked tirelessly to push forward her vision for the Diversity and Equity Council, but progress was slow. Every step forward seemed to be met with resistance from those who feared change or resented her leadership. Yet despite the obstacles, Emily remained steadfast. She knew the fight wasn't just about her, it was about creating a better future for everyone. Grayson and Fletcher, though suspended from their duties, continued to wage their campaign against her. They rallied their allies, spreading rumors and sowing discord among the crew. Some officers wavered in their support for Emily, questioning whether her efforts were worth the trouble they caused. Others, however, stood firmly by her side, inspired by her courage and determination. One evening, as Emily sat alone in her quarters going over reports, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Lieutenant Daniel Brooks standing there holding a data pad. "Captain, I thought you'd want to see this," he said, handing it to her. Emily took the device and scrolled through the information displayed on the screen. It was a list of signatures, dozens of them, from junior officers and engineers who supported her cause. Many had written short messages alongside their names, expressing gratitude for her bravery and sharing their own experiences of discrimination. One entry caught her eye. "Thank you for standing up when no one else would. Because of you, I feel like my voice matters." A lump formed in Emily's throat as she read the words. For the first time in days, she felt a glimmer of hope. These signatures weren't just names, they were proof that her efforts were making a difference. People believed in her vision, and that belief gave her strength. "Did you collect all of these yourself?" she asked Daniel, looking up at him. He nodded. "I figured if we could show how many people are behind you, it might help sway the doubters. Plus, Ambassador Kalin suggested we use this as part of our presentation to Admiral Carter." Emily smiled faintly. "Kalin's been a true ally through all of this. Remind me to thank him again." Daniel grinned. "I'm sure he already knows, but yeah, he's been great." The next day, Emily and her team prepared for another meeting with Admiral Carter. This time, they came armed not only with evidence of Grayson and Fletcher's misconduct, but also with the petition signed by dozens of crew members. The mood in the conference room was tense as officers filed in, taking their seats around the large table. Admiral Carter called the meeting to order, his expression serious. "We're here today to discuss the status of Captain Dawson's proposed council. Let's proceed efficiently." Emily stood, addressing the room with quiet confidence. "Admiral, esteemed colleagues, I'd like to present additional evidence supporting the need for systemic reform within the UEDF." She gestured for Olivia Grant to activate the screen at the front of the room, which displayed the falsified reports and surveillance footage once again. Then she handed out printed copies of the petition to everyone present. "These signatures represent individuals who have experienced discrimination firsthand," Emily explained. "They've chosen to speak up because they believe in the importance of fairness and accountability. This isn't just my fight, it's theirs too." The room fell silent as officers flipped through the pages, reading the heartfelt messages. Even some of Emily's detractors seemed moved by the raw honesty of the testimonials. Commander Halloran, who had previously remained neutral, looked visibly troubled. Before anyone could respond, Ambassador Kalin rose to speak. His presence commanded attention, as always. "What Captain Dawson has shown us is undeniable proof of a problem that cannot be ignored," he said, his voice resonating with authority. "Humanity's alliances depend on its ability to demonstrate unity and justice. Without these values, trust will crumble, not only among your own ranks but also between humanity and other species." His words struck a chord, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Admiral Carter leaned back in his chair, studying the faces of those assembled. Finally, he spoke. "It seems clear that action must be taken. Captain Dawson, I authorize the formation of the Diversity and Equity Council under your leadership. However, I expect transparency and cooperation from everyone involved." A wave of relief washed over Emily, and she nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Admiral, I won't let you down." With the council officially approved, Emily wasted no time assembling a team to develop its framework. She selected representatives from every level of the station's hierarchy. ensuring diverse perspectives were included. Among them were Daniel Brooks, Olivia Grant, and even a few senior officers who had initially opposed her, but now saw the value in reform. As the council began its work, Grayson and Fletcher grew increasingly desperate. Their suspension hearings loomed closer, and they knew the odds were stacked against them. In a last-ditch effort to save themselves, they approached Commander Halloran, pleading for leniency. "She's turned everyone against us," Grayson exclaimed during their private meeting. "You know we were just following orders, trying to maintain discipline." Halloran sighed, rubbing his temples. "Gentlemen, I sympathize with your position, but the evidence is overwhelming. Public opinion has shifted, and even Admiral Carter sees the need for change. Your best course of action is to accept responsibility and move forward." Fletcher clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. Accept responsibility? For what? For enforcing standards that kept this station running smoothly? For abusing your power and undermining morale, Halloran corrected sharply. Whether you admit it or not, your actions have consequences. If you want any chance of redemption, start by apologizing. For real, not just for show. Defeated, Grayson and Fletcher left the meeting without another word. They knew Halloran was right. Their careers were effectively over. But instead of facing the truth, they chose to double down on denial, refusing to acknowledge their mistakes. In contrast, Emily embraced her new role with renewed purpose. The council became a beacon of hope for many aboard Orion's shield, offering a platform for voices that had long been silenced. Junior officers felt empowered to report grievances without fear of retaliation, while senior leaders began reevaluating outdated practices. Ambassador Kalin praised Emily's efforts publicly, using the council as an example of humanity's potential for growth. "True strength lies not in domination but in unity," he declared during a diplomatic gathering. "Captain Dawson and her council embody the principles we seek in our allies. Together we can build a brighter future." Emily listened to his speech with pride, knowing how far they had come. But she also understood that the journey was far from over. Change wouldn't happen overnight, and there would always be those resistant to progress. Still, she refused to let setbacks deter her. Her resolve was tested once more when Grayson and Fletcher's hearings finally arrived. Both men attempted to deflect blame, accusing Emily of exaggerating their actions and manipulating the system. But the weight of evidence and public pressure sealed their fate. They were stripped of their ranks and reassigned to menial duties far from command positions. Though justice had been served, Emily didn't celebrate their downfall. Instead, she focused on moving forward, channeling her energy into building a culture of equality and respect. She held workshops, organized training sessions, and encouraged open dialogue between officers of all ranks. One evening, as she walked through the corridors of the station, Emily noticed something remarkable. The atmosphere had changed. Conversations that once carried undertones of tension now buzzed with collaboration and camaraderie. Crew members greeted each other warmly, regardless of rank or background. It was a small but significant shift, a sign that the seeds of change were taking root. As she paused to gaze out a viewport at the endless expanse of stars, Emily allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead would still be challenging, filled with obstacles and resistance. But she believed in humanity's potential to grow and adapt. With allies like Daniel, Olivia, and Kalin by her side, she felt hopeful for the future. And so, with unwavering determination, Emily Dawson continued her mission, not just for herself but for the countless others who deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them head-on. Months had passed since the hearings that stripped Lieutenant Marcus Grayson and Major Ryan Fletcher of their ranks. The two men were now stationed on a remote outpost, far from the command centers they once dominated. Their absence was barely noticed aboard Orion's shield, where life had begun to transform in subtle but profound ways. The Diversity and Equity Council, led by Captain Emily Dawson, had become a cornerstone of the station's operations, fostering an environment of openness and accountability. Emily stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned starship Eclipse, her heart swelling with pride as she surveyed the bustling activity around her. Promoted to Commodore, she now commanded a vessel unlike any other, a symbol of humanity's commitment to unity and exploration. The Eclipse wasn't just a warship, it was a beacon of hope, designed to forge stronger alliances with extraterrestrial species and chart unexplored regions of space. The ship's crew reflected the diversity Emily had fought so hard to champion. Humans worked side by side with Barathi officers, their shimmering blue skin glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. Ambassador Kalen himself had joined the mission, not as an observer but as an active participant. His presence underscored the importance of interspecies cooperation, marking a new chapter in humanity's journey among the stars. As the countdown to departure began, Emily addressed the crew over the intercom. "Today marks the start of something extraordinary," she said, her voice steady and confident. "We are here not only to explore the unknown but also to build bridges, to prove that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Let us carry forward the values of fairness, respect, and courage that have brought us this far." Her words resonated deeply with the crew, many of whom had witnessed firsthand the changes Emily had inspired aboard Orion's shield. For some, this mission represented redemption, for others, a fresh start. But for everyone, it was a chance to leave behind old prejudices and embrace a brighter future. The first few weeks of the voyage were filled with challenges, both expected and unexpected. Navigating uncharted space required constant vigilance, as the crew encountered strange phenomena and unfamiliar territories. One day, sensors detected a massive energy field blocking their path. Attempts to bypass it failed, leaving the ship stranded at the edge of the anomaly. Tensions ran high as engineers scrambled to find a solution. Some suggested retreating and finding another route, while others argued for pushing forward despite the risks. Emily called a meeting with her senior staff, including Kalen, to discuss their options. "We can't turn back," she said firmly. "This mission is about breaking barriers, literal and figurative. If we retreat now, what message does that send?" Kalen nodded in agreement. "Commodore Dawson is right. To retreat would be to admit defeat before we even begin. My people believe in facing challenges head-on. Perhaps this obstacle is a test, one we must pass to earn our place among the stars." Inspired by his words, the engineering team devised a bold plan to recalibrate the ship's engines and punch through the energy field. It was risky, but Emily gave the order to proceed. As the Eclipse surged forward, the crew held their breath, watching as the swirling vortex enveloped the ship. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The lights flickered and the hum of the engines faltered. Then, suddenly, they emerged on the other side, greeted by a breathtaking sight. A vast, expanse of stars unlike anything they had ever seen. The crew erupted into cheers, their relief and excitement palpable. Emily allowed herself a small smile, knowing this was just the beginning of their journey. As the Eclipse ventured deeper into unexplored space, the crew encountered alien civilizations previously unknown to humanity. Some were friendly, eager to share knowledge and resources. Others were cautious, requiring careful diplomacy to establish trust. Through it all, Emily's leadership shone brightly. She approached every interaction with patience and respect, ensuring that humanity's representatives acted with integrity. One particularly memorable encounter occurred when the Eclipse discovered a planet inhabited by the Lumini, a species of bioluminescent beings who communicated through light patterns. Initial attempts to communicate using traditional methods failed, leading to confusion and mistrust. But Emily remembered Kalen's teachings about honoring cultural differences. She ordered the crew to observe the Lumini carefully, studying their behavior and adapting their approach. After days of effort, they succeeded in establishing basic communication. The Lumini revealed that their world was under threat from environmental decay caused by centuries of resource exploitation. Moved by their plight, Emily proposed a joint initiative to restore the planet's ecosystem, combining human technology with Lumini ingenuity. The project was a resounding success, strengthening the bond between the two species. When the time came to part ways, the Lumini gifted the Eclipse with a shard of crystalline material that pulsed with radiant energy. A token of gratitude, Kalen explained after translating their message. They see you not just as allies, but as friends. Back, aboard the ship, Emily reflected on how far they had come. The journey hadn't been easy, it never was, but each challenge had brought them closer together. The crew no longer saw themselves as individuals representing separate factions or species. They were one team, united by a common purpose. Even Ambassador Kalen seemed different, his usual stoic demeanor softened by the camaraderie he shared with the humans. During a quiet moment in the observation deck, he turned to Emily and said, "You have accomplished more than anyone could have imagined, not because of your rank or authority, but because of your vision and determination." Emily shook her head modestly. "I didn't do this alone. Every member of this crew played a part, and if we've learned anything, it's that change happens when people work together." Kalen smiled faintly, his golden eyes glinting. "Indeed, perhaps humanity is ready to take its place among the stars after all." As the Eclipse sailed onward, Emily found herself standing on the bridge late at night, gazing out at the endless sea of stars. The weight of responsibility still rested heavily on her shoulders, but she felt lighter somehow, as if the burdens of the past had been replaced by a sense of possibility. She thought about the water-pouring incident that had started it all, the humiliation and anger that had fueled her resolve. That moment had been painful, yes, but it had also ignited a movement toward progress. Humanity still had much work to do, but Emily believed in its potential to grow, adapt, and earn its place among the galaxy's great civilizations. With renewed determination, Commodore Emily Dawson steered her crew toward the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, for the sake of unity, justice, and hope. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the Eclipse glimmered like a promise, carrying the dreams of countless worlds into a brighter tomorrow.